all good. Okay, so thank you guys for coming to the October read night. And so tonight, each night we'll build on, and we'll just talk about different things that can be done at home and ways you can help. I just want to reiterate, this was in the paperwork, but this is not a struggling readers program. This is just something that I do to help families in my room to kind of move their kid and help them progress in reading. But everything that I'm doing every single month can be applied to any age, any reading level, any, you know what I'm saying? So I just don't want it to be confused for, like, if my kid struggles, I should be attending these. I want everybody, or as many people as possible to come. So this month we're going to talk about choosing the right books for all kinds of reading. So on the monthly calendars that come home for my reading logs, I just added a spot for reading aloud, reading together, and reading independently. So one of the goals that I'm setting this month is to see these kinds of reading happening at home as often as possible at home. And we're going to talk a little bit about each of these. So as far as reading levels go, at this session tonight, I'll give you a paper that breaks down where your child is reading at, what level they're reading at, and then the levels that are appropriate, specific to your child, for each of these kinds of reading. With that being said, just a few things that we want to reiterate, which is the benefit of this program, because I get to talk to you about it and explain the whys. So we never want your child to feel like they are the reading level. The level is a tool that we use as educators to help them progress, but we also want you to understand the reading level so that you can use it as a tool at home. But it's not necessarily something that we want your child, like, well, this isn't a level Q, so we don't want you reading this book, or things like that. We want that to be something that you're aware of, that you can help them use, but we don't want them to feel like I'm this letter. This session, you'll get the paper with your reading level. It'll break everything down, and I can explain that more when you have that. So we'll start with reading aloud. We want this kind of reading happening above your child's reading level. So wherever your child is reading, we're encouraging you to kind of push and stretch them when you're reading aloud. So the book should be something your child would have difficulty reading on your own. This is not a book they can go off by themselves with. It looks like you're sitting down and you're doing the reading. They're not kind of sharing the reading with you, you're just reading it to them, and they're listening and taking it all in. This should be a book that's going to help them get ready for the next level of reading. We're always pushing them. We want them to keep progressing. So that read aloud, if you think about it, is kind of like that exposure. Like, here's where we're headed, and you're giving them that exposure and giving them that support with it. So the why, when students have a hard time decoding words, sometimes they get stuck in a certain level. So it's nice to have that, so they're getting that exposure, and we're stretching them. They're getting ready for that next level, even if they're stuck there for a little while. And then you're modeling what great reading looks like and sounds like. So they're hearing that, and then that becomes something that they start to do without any instruction, just listening to you. So reading together, this is what happens at your child's current reading level. This is kind of where we instruct at guided reading. We are always also pushing them. We don't stay there for an entire trimester. But the level that your child is reading at is where we want that together reading happening. So what this looks like is you're reading side by side with your child. You're supporting them. You're helping them with difficult words or ideas. You're questioning them about what they're reading. And we're going to have sessions that specifically talk about what does questioning look like. You know, what are some good questions that I can be asking at home? What do I do when they get stuck on a word or an idea? But for today, I just want you to think about the concept of what does that look like at home. Even if you have a lot, like if you have more kids at home, bring them all in, that's fine, like for read aloud or the reading together. At this level, your child will need some support to read. So this isn't like just go off and do it by yourself. So they will need you. And we don't want them to constantly have those experiences that are negative, like this is too hard, I'm trying to read this by myself, I can't. And then they start to develop this I can't read concept. So then we have reading independently. This should be happening below your child's current reading level, and it should be something that they don't need to come to you often. They're feeling good about this. They can go off by themselves and they're fine. It looks like your child reading without you next to them and they're not frustrated. Okay? And then you're going to support them by helping them identify appropriate books, which I'll show you some tools that you can use, and then asking them questions to ensure their understanding. If you ask them what they're reading and they say, I have no idea, I don't even know what the topic of that book was, well then there's some sort of breakdown. That's not an independent book. Or maybe you just decide, well, they were distracted. There were other things going on. Students, the why of this is that students need to have opportunities to read on their own to build that confidence. And we want them to practice being independent. If you're always reading with them, then they think they always need you. So we want them to have that independent reading time as well. So I have some tools that I'm going to show you, but we also use the 5-finger rule. So if your child's reading a book independently, so this would be on their own, and they come across 5 words that they don't know on one page, that's probably too difficult. We don't want them to sit there constantly trying to figure it out. We want that to be a confidence builder. Like, I'm good with this. I can understand it, I can read it, I'm good to go. So I kind of posed this question in October. So what happens when your child's always picking these books that are too hard? So when children choose books that are too hard, then they're going to associate reading with frustration. It'll carry over into all subject areas. And then this is where we start to see this, I don't like school, I don't want to go to school, because they're not feeling that success. We see this more. This is the reason for my program. I started this because I got my reading specialist degree. And throughout my master's, I just read so much research on the gap starts in 3rd grade. So we start to see this, they start to have these negative experiences because we transition from learning how to read to understanding what we're reading more. And in that transition, we start to see some kids start to not make as much progress and start to have these negative experiences with reading. So I said, well, if I can inform parents of how important this is and things that can be done at home, perhaps that will alleviate some of that. Oh, and I did want to say, I said on there, it's important for kids to know that this can happen at any age. So like I had put on there as an example, so if I had to read car manuals every single day, that was my reading experience every single day, I would absolutely dislike reading. That would be awful. There would be a breakdown. I don't have the background knowledge I need. There would be so much vocabulary that I needed help with. If that was my experience day in and day out, it would not be a good experience for me. So I would start to move away from that. I would not want to do that. So when you think of it that way, that any age, any level of reading, you can start to dislike it depending on the experiences that you're having. It goes to show like how important this is. So I've set a few goals for this month. So my first goal would be to try to incorporate that balance of reading aloud, reading together, and reading independently, so that they have that practice on their own, but they're still getting that enjoyment. They love being read aloud too. When I do read aloud, that's like their favorite thing. You know, and if I can't get to it, they're like, oh man, I want to find out what's happening. So, you know, just giving them that at home is really, really, really enjoyable for them. I have 2 different resources to help with levels of books. Again, just reiterating that this doesn't have to be an every time thing. You can use those just gauges, like you can tell, okay, this isn't happening independently, let's read this together, or let me read it aloud. And that's okay, you can do it that way. But if you're just looking for books that are appropriate, like I would love to get some books in my library that are around this level so we can read it independently or read aloud. I do have 2 resources, the Book Wizard website, which I can show, and then I also found this Level It app. It is $5, but I bought it, just to play around with it. And you can actually put in books to this app and it'll give you, for most, not all, but it'll give you like a guided reading level for it. So before you leave, if you want me to show it to you, again, so if you're at the library and you're trying to just find a few books, it's really quick. You just pull it up on your phone, type it in, and then you have that to check. And then my other goal for this month is to refrain from telling your child you can't read this. So if they come to you with that book that you know is a little bit too difficult for them to read by themselves, call it a together book. You know, we're going to read this together. That's okay. This book, this is a good independent book, but you want to read this, we'll read this one together. So again, thanks for coming. We hopefully you put your name in the end of year raffle and this evening's raffle. I just do little giveaways for the kids to be fun. You can read with your child for the rest of the time anywhere in the room. That's what I want you to be spending the most of your time doing. Mrs. McBride is one of the reading specialists here, and she helps me. She's wonderful. She helps me with all my read nights, so you'll see a lot of her if you choose to continue, which I hope you do. I hope you'll come out. And it helps me get to know you guys, and it's relaxed, and you can bring whoever you want. We're here to answer any questions, and then if you are interested in the Book Wizard app or the Level It app, I can just kind of give you a brief. The Book Wizard's free, it's a website, but I can show you just kind of an overview on my computer with it. Okay? All right, happy reading. You can read the rest of the time, and then I'll pick someone for our raffle.